podcast. Hope you enjoy this episode. If you're a return listener, thank you for coming back. We want to keep putting out good content. This week, we have on Leann Ramirez. Leann, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and y'all?
We're just getting uniced, I will say that.
Yeah, it's been a chilly week here in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And is there still any snow left in Texas?
Well, right now I'm staying in the valley, so there was no snow at all, just ice. But where my university is in San Antonio, apparently there was a lot of snow. I saw a lot of pictures, didn't get to experience it. Kind of sad, but also glad because there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened.
Yeah, none of us in the South are used to that. I mean, we'll get the occasional 1 inch or 2 inches here in Mississippi, but it got crazy quick.
Yeah, and there's still some out there. So I was slipping today on the way to the gym. I was just like, whoa, it shouldn't be like this.
Well,
No, that's crazy.
We'll start us off. I want to ask you the question of the day, and I came up with this on the way over here. Would you rather? So, do you listen to music when you work out?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather have to listen to smooth jazz during your workouts for the next 6 months, or only be able to train with a barbell up to 225 and kettlebells for 3 months?
Smooth jazz. Smooth jazz
I said the
for
same
sure.
thing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I could handle that. 225, that's one of my warm-ups for bench. So, I mean, I kind of that wouldn't really do anything for my bench or anything. I think that's my favorite thing to work out. And if I didn't have all the weight I needed, I'm also a very high-maintenance lifter. I figured that out this past year whenever I was training for Raw Nationals. My coach, Kyle from Project Strength, he would drive down from Houston to so Houston is a 4-hour drive from San Antonio. So he would drive down to help coach me, and my other coach there at the university, he would take down the rug that we compete on, and he would roll it out for me, kind of deal. So I feel like I'm a very high maintenance lifter, but I use it to the best of my ability, I guess. Make it worth it.
What if it was 315 on the bar? Would that change your answer?
Yeah, 315 I could work with for sure. I could do volume work and different stuff, especially right now because I'm not training too heavy because I did recently hurt my knee. So 315 would be perfect for me, honestly, right now.
Yeah.
If we're going raw.
Did you?
Raw.
Yeah, obviously the equip numbers that'd be a no go. You'd have to go with jazz. But how'd you hurt your knee and how's it doing now?
Well, I don't know how I hurt my knee. I've always had a little bit of hip pain, and it was kind of just an acute injury. I think it was just I was working out one day, and all of a sudden my knee started hurting, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what happened. I've kind of just been milking it a little bit to try to recover as fast as possible, but as safely as possible. That's really the end goal because I want to continue powerlifting in the future. So I don't even know what exercise I was doing. I just know that after my workout one day, I was like, wow, that hurts and it's swollen. So that was about 3 or 4 months ago. And now it's so much better though. When I first heard it, I could barely walk up my stairs. I was like, oh my gosh, it's over. That's it. That was my last meet. And I was like, dang it, I didn't get to compete all this year. But I've slowly been trying to rebuild my strength with my knee and stuff like that with a lot of mobility work, stretching, seeing different physical therapists and, people that have just been helping me rehab, especially my coaches. They're super supportive and they really do help with everything. And people don't take into account the mental aspect that goes in behind an injury. It does take a toll, and I'm just glad I have really supportive coaches and, teammates and parents that really help me out with that.
So is this have you dealt with injuries a lot in your lifting career? Because you've been lifting since 2014 in high school, right?
Yeah, I've been lifting quite a while, and I've had my fair share of injuries for sure. Yeah.
After those injuries, do you usually like you said your injuries your knee? So did you change something about your squat or just how you were doing your accessories?
After I hurt my knee or before I hurt my knee or just any?
Or just any injury.
Yeah. So with this current injury, I have changed a lot of things that I've during my workouts. So I used to have a very, very narrow stance. Well, it's changed over the years. I used to have that, Louis Simmons
Oh yeah,
style
Super
squat,
wide,
like way wide, and then I ended up, slowly moving in, and just this past year, it was super narrow, and I felt so comfortable. But then, like, since I hurt my knee, I've been going a little bit wider and been doing mostly box squats just to take a little bit of pressure off at the bottom. I also do a lot of mobility work, like I said, isolated work, band work, not so much like strength, because I do want to start slowly, gradually build up that strength in the knee.
So you mentioned Louis. Did you start like doing conjugate anytime?
So what?
You mentioned like Louis Simmons and like the super wide squats and everything. Did you do any like conjugate training when you started doing gearlifting?
Well, okay, so I used to train with a crew called the RGB Strength, and they're based in Los Fresnos. So that's in the valley where I'm from. It's like, I guess, like 15 minutes away from my house. And I worked with them my senior year of high school, and that's like all they ran. So honestly, I loved it.
Really?
To an extent. Yeah, I loved it. I've tried so many different like styles of training, and that one I didn't progress as fast as like, progressive overload and just different stuff like that. But it was very fun to, work with. I just like the fact that it was always maximum like effort, and it was, I was kind of like a gym bro, I guess. Yeah. But also the people there, they really were great, and they made the atmosphere really good, and just training overall. So like if everyone was like, oh, I'm gonna be 5 minutes late, then everyone was 5 minutes late kind of deal. So we would always train together. So it was really good.
That's cool to hear. So like she was just saying, like you don't progress as fast on conjugate, mainly because you're not as specific in the squat, bench, and deadlift. You're not doing the exact technique you're going to use in comp. You're like changing up usually every week, and then your speed work is the kind of this thing that stays kind of constant throughout the entire time with that. So what's your experience with speed work? Do you think it worked well for you, or did you kind of just like throw it off to the side and say it doesn't work as well now?
Honestly, when I was doing speed work, I was like, man, this is pointless, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was like, I don't understand. Like, it doesn't feel like anything. And then I would go home and I'd be so sore, and then I would just see it translate to gear work. Like, it was so good. Like, the explosiveness at the bottom of my squat was amazing. But then, like, after I switched, I noticed, like, a bunch of different, like, pros from other ways of training as well. So it honestly just goes on preference and, like, what type of lifter you are. So everyone is different. Me personally, I liked it, but I don't prefer it. Okay. So that's,
Yeah, I'm an equipped lifter, so I'll probably be asking you a bunch of equipment questions here. But it's good to, like, try out different program styles for one, to see what you like, but it also, like, it opens up your horizons on what's out there. And then the more programs that you try, and like, progressive overload, conjugate, 5-3-1, whatever it is, the more you do, like when someone younger than you asks you about program, you can have a better idea on like what kind of opinion to give them, because you've actually like done that style of programming.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, just because when I first started powerlifting, I had no idea what anything was. So I was like, they're like, what do you run? And I was like, I don't run, kind of deal. I just lift. What are you talking about? But no, so it's really good to understand the different types of, training that your coach provides for you, to understand like the science behind it. I'm still learning every time I get a new block, honestly. Nobody knows everything, so it's always good to, continue learning about the sport and about, training.
We don't know what we don't know.
That's a good one right there. Yeah. So, Leann, you are a 2-time IPF World Champion and a 3-time Equipped and Raw National Champion. Can you give us kind of like a quick overview of your powerlifting career, like through high school and then into college?
Yeah, definitely. So, I started in about 2014 in high school. I had never heard of the usapl, mind you, so I didn't hear about that till I was a senior. But I did compete with the Texas High School Women's Powerlifting Association, and my first meet I got third, and I was like devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, like third place, no. And I remember, talking to the girl that won first place, and she's like, don't worry, like you're good. Like she was talking to me about like how I'm gonna progress and stuff. And she's like, oh, what grade are you in? You're senior? And I was like, no, I'm a freshman. And she's like, oh, what the heck? Like what the heck? Like that's crazy. No, you're lifting crazy numbers. And at the time, I didn't understand or I didn't know like if I was good or not, if I'm being honest. And I never really thought, I was gonna continue this out of high school or even past freshman year. And after that, I think I got fourth at state that year, and I got second the following year. And then I tied for first my junior year, and then I finally got first my senior year. I was working my butt off that whole summer just because I was like, oh my gosh, how could I tie for first and then lose it by a pound? Like I was so frustrated, but it just made me want to work harder if I'm being honest. And then once I got to college, it was a whole different ballpark, if I'm being honest. Like it just felt completely different, even though it's the same sport. It differs from federation to federation. So in high school, they're so much more lenient than they are in the USAPL, and the USAPL is so much more lenient than the IPF for sure. But once I got to college, I competed in a couple meets and I won first. I don't remember the last time I got second place, but actually I do. I placed fifth in the Open at Raw Nationals. That was my first Raw meet ever, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
But yeah. So going back to like my college experience, I did place first. I qualified for Collegiate Nationals. I went to Worlds. I won gold there. And honestly, that meet didn't really feel like, oh my gosh, I won. Like it was kind of just like, oh, like, all right, another meet kind of deal. And then I got back and I did my first ever Collegiate Nationals. And I feel like that is my meet that I hold closest to me just because I worked so hard, because I've had so many people tell me like, oh, you're not going to win. Like you're nothing. Like nobody cares about like your training and all this stuff. And I was like, man, like, oh, I'm going to show you that I am the best and that I'm going to work hard so that I can get those records and, show you like, okay, like you may not think I'm anything, but obviously like, look at my numbers. Like I'm going to let my numbers do the talking. So I think that's my favorite meet. And then I competed in Canada, and honestly, that was so much fun as well. I love going to international meets. You meet so many people, and I actually have some really good friends in Canada, and, I met them through that meet and just from all over the world. And it's so good to experience stuff like that and, doing something that you love too. So I really love going international as well. And after Worlds, I competed at Raw Nationals, and I had done like a meet in El Paso, I believe, but it was 2 weeks before I left to Worlds. So I was like, oh, I kind of want to qualify for Raw Nationals. My coach looked at me, he's like, really? Like, why you say that now? And I was like, I don't know, I just want to qualify. And he's like, all right, I guess. So I was actually going to El Paso to help him work the meet. So after like the session that I worked, I like put on my singlet, and I had an SBD that day. So I just did my SBD workout, and it was just kind of like, just a workout for me. And I ended up getting best lifter at that meet.
Oh,
and
wow.
I loved like just competing like for fun, if I'm being honest. And I got to qualify for Raw Nationals, and then I got to Raw Nationals, and it's a whole different experience than equip lifting. Like some people hate on raw lifting and some people hate on equip lifting, but I honestly feel like they're two different things. Like there's so much stuff that goes into gear work and just prepping for a equip meet, and then the same thing goes for raw. So when I went, I wasn't really expecting much. I was just expecting to go out there, have fun. I ended up coming out first in the juniors and fifth in the Open, so I was really happy with that. And then I believe that was my last meet, and I'm not going to be competing this year actually. So
wow.
yeah.
Well, why is that? Is it because your knee?
Just for my knee. I just want to be 100% when I go back in the game. I wouldn't want to give like a 50% into a meet. I know it like I said, it is just for fun, but I do want to be 100% healthy, and I don't want to, be like, oh, here's a, 300 squat when that's not really what I can do. I don't think like it's worth going into a meet and giving half when you can give 100 if you just wait a little bit longer.
That's yeah, that's kind of what I needed to hear. I was planning on doing Collegiate Nats this year, and I kind of made the decision today to not do it, because this Wednesday it'll be 4 weeks from when I had my appendix removed, and I really, really wanted to do it because last year COVID messed everything up. Outside factors you can't really control, and I couldn't really decide when my organ wanted to go out. But like I was telling Altman, and my coach kind of gave me his concerns today. He was like, "Man, it's just honestly the risk versus reward is not worth it. Like focusing on your long-term health is more important. There's going to be more meets down the road." And he said exactly what you said. Like, best case scenario, it takes you 2 more weeks to work up to where you can actually get into gear, and then I only have 4 weeks in gear to get ready for a meet. And as I'm sure you know, that's not enough.
Yeah.
And especially when I got a brand new super katana that I was trying to work on getting a touch to.
Oh no.
I had gotten nothing below a 2 board before the surgery, so that wasn't happening. And he was like, going up on a national stage and not doing as well as you want is, that's tough to see, and that's gonna live with you for the next year. So it's probably the best decision, but hopefully next year all things will go smoothly.
No, definitely. And I'm so sorry to hear that, you had to pull out of the meet. But the good thing is, you made the right decision. I actually had to make that decision before they canceled Open Nationals. I was debating. I was like, man, should I go? Like, it's a really big risk. Like, I don't know if I should go because of the virus and stuff like that. Well, they ended up canceling the meet. But before they had done that, I took a, moment. I talked to my coaches, talked to my family, and I was like, powerlifting is always going to be there for you. And that's what I tell everybody when they're going through something like physically, mentally, emotionally, and they're not 100% in the game. It's really important to take time for yourself because powerlifting will always be there for you. And you only have one body. You need to cherish it and take care of it. And that's something that a lot of people, they're just like, no, I want to compete. And it's so good that, I'm very glad that you're taking the time to like let your body heal and take care of yourself because it's super, super important.
Good job, Sam.
It's not what I want to do. Obviously, I'm in the game. I'm in the sport of powerlifting because I love to compete. I love to train. But like you said, that short term versus long term, everybody, me included, we always want like instant gratification now. Like, I want 20 pounds on my squat now. I want my deadlift to get better now. But powerlifting is a long game. And you got to do the things now to ensure that you can continue to play this long game year after year. And when we get to be, 25, 30, 35, 40, we're still competing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to competing in the Masters division. So I'm trying to make sure that I stay healthy because I really do love it. And I'm sure y'all do too. It's a fun sport and it's very competitive and you meet so many good people in it, so many coaches. Like,
yeah, you really do.
Lifters, it's crazy.
So let me ask you this: so you love to compete as most of us do. So how many times a year do you usually compete when you're healthy 100%?
It really just depends however many meets I want to do, if I'm being honest. So this past year I competed in a lot of meets. Like I said, I competed in that. I believe I competed in just like a meet just to have fun, and then I competed at Collegiate Nationals, World. I did that raw meet, and then I went to raw nationals. I competed at 5 meets this year. So that's like a lot for me. I usually compete at like 2 because I had never done raw, but I competed at like 5 in 2019 before COVID happened. And it really, like I said, it really just depends how I'm feeling, how healthy I am, what my coaches expect from me, what I expect from myself, and like the goals I set. So that year I was like, you know what? I want to win a raw title. I want to win this and that. And I was like, so I just kind of just depends, I guess.
That's funny. You know what? I'm gonna win a raw title this year. Just to do it. That's goals right there.
Yeah.
Well, anything you set your mind to, you definitely can do it. So that's why I always kind of just like set like short-term goals for myself.
Okay.
And
so have you always been like a little stronger than the rest, or do you attribute it to how you lifted in high school, gave you a head start after high school? What do you think it's been from?
honestly, I think it's been from hard work, if I'm being honest. When I first, I mean, I've always been a little bit strong since I was younger. I never really knew my strength, I guess, but I really never saw that. But, I would play rough with like my friends, and they would like, you know, when I was smaller, I would push like people around, I guess,
Oh, she's a
because I mean,
bully.
I would just play rough. I'm not so much a bully. I would just play very rough, and I didn't really know that I was being so like rough with them. And then as like I got older, I realized I was a little bit strong. I played other sports. I was always involved with sports, so I think that also attributed to my strength. And then when I got to high school, I was like, man, I want to do wrestling and powerlifting, aside from every other sport that I did in high school. And I just kind of started working out, and I didn't really know that I was strong until like I went to my first meet, and I was like, whoa, like I'm a little bit strong, I guess. And then I remember squatting 315 for my first time, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then like a girl next to me just squatted 405, and I was like, oh, I guess. So I couldn't really tell at the time that I was strong, but I worked very, very hard. And recently I've been taking more time to myself, but before I would be like, nope, need to go train, sorry. Nope, need to go train, sorry. And it would be on Valentine's Day, I'd be like, sorry. Or, on my birthday, any occasion, I was like, oh, today's a training day, can't do that. Or even when I was like on vacation, I was like, Mom, like I need to find a gym nearby so I could work out.
Yep.
And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I need to go work out. Like, I can't, like I have needs.
I know exactly what you mean.
Absolutely.
On my senior trip, I went out west, and like we spent like 2 weeks just traveling around out there. But wherever we stopped, like I was looking for a gym. I was looking up how much the day pass was because I was gonna get a workout. And like that's the thing with people that really love the sport of powerlifting and love training. Like it doesn't matter what that day is. Like Christmas break. It's Christmas Day, and my mom's like, "Are you gonna train today?" I was like, "Well, yeah, it's on the program. I'm gonna train. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas. Like, it doesn't matter what the day is. If it's a training day, you're gonna go and you're gonna get the work done. That's just how it is.
It's a priority.
Yeah, and that's what I try to explain to my mom. And she's like, "No, like we're gonna go like see stuff." And I was like, "You know what? Like, I still need it. Can I just like have like at least an hour?" And that an hour was cutting it for me because I kind of would spend like 4 or 5 hours in the gym. Like anybody that knows me, I would take forever in the gym. Recently, I started cutting it back a little bit, so like now I'll be there like 2 hours, 3
Wow.
max. But beforehand, I would go after school and just spend all day there. Just whether it be like working or even on the days where I didn't train, I would just go to the gym and like talk to everybody and see like what was up. I just love the atmosphere in general. So it was always hard to like, space out everything else because I was always at the gym. But it's gotten better.
I've tried that, like go to the gym but not like talk. I usually just end up working out with somebody because I'm like, I'm here, so I'm gonna do something.
Oh yeah, and I think the one thing that stopped me from doing that, I was like, okay, like instead of working out, I guess we'll work on mobility or something like that, or stretch, or maybe like somebody else is in gear, so like they need a lot of attention. Because I know like when I'm in gear, I'm like, hey, can somebody help me? Can somebody help me load the plates, like, or wrap me or something. So I definitely would want to help my teammates when they need help. That way, when I need help, they're there for me.
Yeah. So as we kind of get into more of your training, how do you usually set up the week for your workouts? Obviously, you're working on injury right now and getting back to it. How does normally your week go, let's say, when you're just doing like raw training?
When I'm doing raw train, if I'm prepping for a meet, like let's say I didn't have this injury, so if I'm prepping for a meet, I would usually either train about like 5 days a week. Usually like it really doesn't matter how it's spaced out as long as I'm not working out 5 days in a row. Definitely that would be a little bit terrible for my body. I would be crying inside. But it would always like be like squat and bench or deadlift and bench or like a variation day, and then the other one would be like a mobility day and like light work. But I've had different coaches, so all my coaches have been different when it comes to raw lifting. my most recent coach, or he's really good about raw lifting. Like he is a raw coach and he is amazing. Like I had the best numbers I've ever had with him. And also he's the first coach that took me to a meet and I went 9 for 9. So there's always that like one lift that I'm always like, oh, but he's amazing. So his raw training consists of like I said, like he would split it, but recently it's been more like, oh, just like a lower body day, upper body day, variation, and then there would be like one day with like a upper and lower, just because I am working out on an injury. So now it's only like 4 days a week, but previously it would be 5.
Okay. I've noticed like if I do 5, I just get kind of burned out and just like I just don't really want to lift anymore. If I do 4, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the next time we lift now. Let's go. And you mentioned like the different coaches. Do you find that you do better on your training when you're more motivated by the coach, or just like you enjoy the training plan, like you enjoy doing it, so you're more motivated to do it, which leads to better results?
I guess like I would say that the coaches do play a huge role in how I go looking towards training. That's one thing that I cannot put to the side, because they really do determine how I look at my training. So it really depends on my coach as well. But me, like if I love what like their program for me, I'm always like, okay, it's time to go to the gym. I'm so excited. But if they're programming me like hip thrusts, like with the barbell, I'm like kind of just like, oh darn, like I hate those. Like, can you change them? Or just something I don't like, I kind of have to like push myself to go. And my coaches are also like, make sure you do this, send me videos. And I'm like, okay, but I'm like, oops. I'll be like, I changed it out with this today, and they're like, no, don't do that. And I'm like, sorry. But yeah, it really does depend on my coach as well. But it's mostly like me trying to like motivate myself, and I'm always really excited to go to the gym, especially when I don't have an injury, because I'm always like, oh, let's go 100%. Not so much as in like the weight, but as an effort that I give when I am there doing my workout.
Yeah, I think like enjoying and liking the kind of workout you're doing and the exercises that are in it go a long way into your progress and like how you get better. Because obviously if there's stuff in there that you don't want to do, you're not going to put as much effort into them, or you're not going to pay as much attention to like the technical part of the whatever exercise it is. So I think just enjoying like the exercises that are in your program, and that doesn't mean that just because you enjoy and they have to be easy. Like you can still challenge yourself with the lifts that you like to do.
Yeah, I think I used to be really terrible at bench, actually.
What?
And I used to be horrible. I actually have a video on my Instagram, and I was like, it's disgusting to look at, if I'm being honest. I'm like, oh no, I get embarrassed from looking at it. But I do also remind myself like, wow, look at how far I've come. And I loved the lift. I loved benching, and I used to think I was so great at it. But obviously,
you're pretty good at benching.
Well, like it took me time, if I'm being honest, and my amazing coaches at the university that really helped me fix my form, because oh my gosh, it was I'm gonna show y'all that video because it was horrible. So like the range of motion was ginormous. I was basically flat backing it. I almost hit my face, kind of deal. But
so do you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like I said, it was super challenging to fix it, and it was super challenging like to add more weight with a new form and stuff like that, but I loved doing it.
So you attribute your progress in bench to the bettering your form?
Yes, for sure. I really do believe that the way you lift, or like your form, determines how much you lift. I've also seen some very ugly squats, some very ugly benches that are crazy strong, but it's only so long before you hit a plateau, or before you start like deteriorating, kind of deal. And honestly, I think that's kind of what happened with my squat a little bit, because I was a little bit wonky, hitting the hole and stuff like that. So it really just depends with like forms but everyone squats different. Everyone has like different like anatomy. You know, not everyone's built the same. You know, they're built different. But I think the way you bench really does play a part. So I used to bench without using any leg drive at all, and in heels, and they were like all the way beneath me. So I would get no leg drive at all, and I put my feet way in front of me now. You know, my grip is completely different, and honestly, I lift a lot with a lot less pain and just more comfortably.
So, I noticed you're not the only lifter to do that. Put your feet kind of like more in front of the bench, a lot narrower. I'm looking at it right now, and then you have, of course, a pretty big arch, and then wider hands just to decrease that range of motion. So, my question is like, how did you? Was it just trial and error? Or did you have like a coach say, "Hey, let's try this"?
It was my coaches at first.
Okay.
They were like, "Okay, now that you're at the university, let's change everything." And I was like, "Change everything? Like, it's been going fine for me." And they're like, "No, we need to change everything." So they kind of just like changed my grip. So I already had a wide grip, but they made it wider. And then I changed my feet position. I changed the shoes I lifted in. And they were just kind of like constantly like on me, like, "Okay, you need to fix this. You need to work on that. Or, you know, your butt's coming up or this or that." And it just kind of like kept playing in my head. And I really do attribute like my bench to my coaches at the university.
So, now for the people listening, that doesn't mean go and change everything you're doing in a lift right now. That just means that she had someone that knew more than her and had more experience, and they saw how she was lifting, and they suggested something to change. She tried it, and it worked. So if someone comes up to you and they suggest something, you know, try changing it for a little while, see if it works. You know, we say that all the time on the show. You know, the worst that can happen is it doesn't work, and then just go back to what you were doing. But what were we gonna say, Altman?
Honestly, I just forgot. I was
So let me ask you this: do you think, from your experience in gear, because before you had 4 years of gear in high school, obviously you lifted in Texas. Gear is life in Texas.
Yeah.
Do you think lifting in gear gave you a better appreciation and focus for having technical proficiency while you're lifting raw? Because you have to focus a lot more on like the actual technique and aspect of when you're in gear.
Honestly, that's a really tough question. Because it's like gear has become second nature for me. So I don't even think about lifting anymore. I'm kind of just like, okay, I already have to do this. Like, I don't even think about it. And with raw lifting, it's like, okay, like you gotta keep tight. You know, you gotta, keep the tension while you're going down. You gotta go a little bit fast, but not too fast. And, your feet have to be a certain, distance and all this stuff. But I guess in a way, it did give me an appreciation more for like the technical aspect. I've always been a very technical lifter anyway, so I get very frustrated with myself when everything's not perfect. So honestly, I think that helped, mold me into a good lifter, because I'm always like, okay, like that was a good lift, but I didn't like this, or just like every single lift, like no matter what it was. And I guess like when I first started lifting, I wasn't very technical. So my coaches helped me, get into the rhythm of my form and stuff like that. And before it was second nature, I guess you can say that it did give me a lot of appreciation for that.
So, what are your favorite accessories to build up? Since you, besides just bench pressing, what's your favorite accessories to build up the bench?
My favorite accessory for bench is tricep pull downs, or anything tricep related.
Okay.
I love working my triceps. I feel like everybody knows that, because like my triceps like are pretty big. That's like I feel like that's my identifier. Just my triceps, but honestly, it helps with bench, especially when you have your sticking points.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and especially like
that's what I'm making.
You're really wide, so of course most of your bench is your triceps,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in gear. I'm like the reason I started doing like a lot of tricep stuff because of Louis Simmons. Like, to work your triceps if you want a big bench, and then Matt Winning, like the conjugate system is more focused on like building up those triceps and back just to get a bigger bench press. I was like, okay, I'll do that. Why not? So what about
It
this?
really does help though.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. So what about the squat and the deadlift?
That one, I have a couple. For deadlift, I like RDLs with dumbbells.
Okay.
I really like those, but with like your feet elevated a little bit, those really like you feel them in your hamstrings and your glutes.
Are you talking about like your feet elevated, like the front of your feet elevated?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So like you're standing on like a wedge,
Mhm.
and then you're like holding the dumbbells, obviously, and then it's because like at my gym that I train at TSS, so they have like this wedge that our coach had already welded or something like that for us for that specific exercise, and like everyone uses it for that. Like I feel like RDLs without the wedge is kind of like I don't feel them as much, so I'm just like okay, it's already like a thing in my mind. I'm like I need the wedge or a plate or something, and then for squat, I kind of like sumo squats like with like a plate or like a weight in front of you or kettlebell, it doesn't really matter. And I think my least favorite accessory, like I said earlier, would be the hip thrust with the barbell. I hate those. I don't know why I hate them so much. Those and then single leg RDLs. I hate those, but those are really good for you.
Yes.
Yeah, those are super good. I all my coaches have programmed them for me, and I was like, dang it, I hate these, but I know they're gonna help me.
So with the hip thrust, are they programming that because you're not really too great at hip extension, or what?
So like just on my lockouts when I'm in gear, I have a little bit of trouble at the top, like
Okay. Okay.
So
Makes
locking
sense.
out. Yeah, so they would program those for me, and I was just like, ooh, I really don't want to do them.
Yeah.
But I would try my best to get them done. I don't think I never try to skip accessories. I think that's something that a lot of lifters do, and that is one thing that helped me become a good lifter is my accessory work. Yes, like your main lift, you're practicing what you do in competition, but you're not working those smaller muscles that you need to stabilize and stuff like that. So also they help, decrease the risk of injury too. So definitely good to do those.
Yeah, I completely agree. Accessories are huge. Like you need that work for the comp specific movement to get that down and work on that. But like if you're not doing accessories, are you really a power lifter? Like
yeah,
you have to get that extra little work to like work the individual muscles to like compound and work towards your comp movements.
There are like people who have just not really done accessories. They just do more sets and reps on the main lift, which has done wonders for them. But eventually, like you said, they do end up getting injured because they're doing the same thing all the time. Like Conjugate is a big fan of let's change it up almost every week so we hit the muscle in a different way or get a different stimulus in a different way, just so we don't wear down the joints as much, so you can train for longer. So yeah, I think it's a great way to avoid injury, and they're just fun. Let's be honest. Like you like triceps and you like having big triceps, and if they make you have big arms, big chest, big legs, then yeah, why not?
Yeah, I definitely agree. They're so much fun, especially like when I love supersets. So I get a really good pump when even if they're not programmed supersets, I kind of like make them my own supersets, and that's how I also like maintained my weight a lot. Whenever I was competing, I would just superset everything, and my heart rate would jump up like at the end of the workout, and I would get a really good sweat and a really good pump, and I loved it.
So are you like a closet bodybuilder? Like you like the accessories because you want to look good too?
When honestly, like I never really cared about my appearance when it comes to like weights, I guess. Like I honestly like I'm in it for strength. So I mean at first I kind of did care about my appearance, but then it kind of just was like, like body positivity kind of stuff. I was like, love yourself, and I think that really helped with everything. And honestly, whenever I would cut weight, it would just come naturally, and I would just feel good about myself. And I would see differences, but it wasn't so much that I was working towards that.
Okay.
I want to jump back for a second. I like what you mentioned about the single leg RDLs, because when I was working out like before the surgery, I would have the single leg RDLs programmed in, and I would also have hip airplanes. And if you ever done hip airplanes, you know that they suck. Like
Yeah.
you don't use weight on them, but they're really good for mobility of the hips, which I have a lot of problems with. But I think like using them in conjunction with each other, not having them on the same day, just having them within the same program, doing them on like two or 3 days apart. Like the hip airplanes for mobility, I think they really help someone feel the right way to do a single leg RDL.
I've never done those. What are
The
those?
hip
Like,
airplanes.
yeah.
It's like a single leg RDL where you keep the hips neutral, you lean forward on one leg, but then you externally rotate the hips. So it like
Okay. I've seen that on like Squat University and stuff like that. Now that you've mentioned that, I never know like the actual names to movements, even though I've been doing this for I don't know how long. I'm just kind of like, you do it like this, or So it's always hard to be like when my coach is asking like, oh, like what accessories do you like? And I'm like, I don't know, the ones that go like this. So, but yeah, now I know exactly what you're talking about now.
so you mentioned you work out at TSS.
Mhm.
Is that Texas Strength Systems?
Yeah, so Texas Strength Systems is in San Antonio. I'm not working out there right now, so I'm in the Valley. But when I am at my university, I work out at TSS, so that's where the UTSA powerlifting team works out. And our coach, Wes Dunker, he owns TSS, so we get to work out there for free for our dues, basically. So we pay our dues and we get to work out there. And it's honestly one of the best gyms I've been to. So if you're ever in San Antonio, definitely go visit TSS.
Isn't that
Not
where
sponsored.
Jesus trains?
That's what I say.
Deadlift, like
Hey,
Jesus
Jesus,
Deadlift, is it?
Jesus.
Jesus Oliveras.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the new sensation in the powerlifting world.
Oh, that guy Megatronus.
Yes,
yes.
Megatron. Oh yes. I saw him on HC Powerlifting. So yeah, that's TSS, and it's a really cool gym.
Yeah, he was actually one of our first guests, and he's kind of blown up now after he
Oh,
had that
absolutely,
first
yeah.
meet, and everybody
Yeah.
realized how strong he was, and now he's on the seems like very short road to 1,000-pound squat.
I know. I've been like seeing it on King of the Lift. Like he was on King of the Lifts, and he was on like he gets reposted on HC Powerlifting a lot. As well. I think there's another one that he gets reposted on, and I always see it, and I'm like, whoa, like I love seeing strong people, like especially people that interact with like other like so like HC Powerlifting is fairly new. It's honorable community powerlifting, and it's just a bunch of different powerlifters that communicate with each other and talk to each other, give each other tips and like about like mental health and stuff like that. And it's a really cool page. If you haven't heard about it, definitely check it out. It's run by a couple, girls that I know personally. So the main owner of it is Tess, and she's so sweet. She's so sweet. So if you ever get to talk to her, you'll know what I mean. And she's super strong also. She actually works out with him all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to.
So it's
I'll
like
have to
their
check
little
that
crew.
page out. That sounds pretty interesting.
And it's
Yeah.
And it's HD.
Yeah, HC Powerlifting. I'm following them too, so if you can like check the following on mine, I think.
HC or HD?
HC.
HC.
So like,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we as like a new, I guess like a new powerlifting thing. It's cool to see like new ones pop up and like see the growth throughout them, because we've seen like a little bit of growth, and obviously we've only been doing it since August, so we're not gonna be as big as King of the Lifts, but
They've been doing it for like, wow, dude. I think I saw like they started in like 2012
yeah.
or 2013. It's been in it for a
And
while.
and it's the same like with like a podcasting, like try not, and with powerlifting as well, like try not to compare yourself to the people at the top.
Yeah.
Like you see Joe Rogan, and he's got like over 1,500 episodes. He's been doing it over 10 years.
He was like the original podcast.
Yeah, he's like the father of podcasting. But
Yeah, it's definitely like it's you can't compare yourself really. Like everyone's their own. Like they have something different to bring to the table. So definitely you're gonna see growth like within the next couple of years. And I hope that I can be back on in the next couple of years when y'all do blow up, because I know y'all will for sure.
Yeah, there was a comment on our YouTube like, y'all will have a lot of followers in 7 years. I was like, oh, thanks.
if we can continue to do this for 7 years, I mean, obviously once after college, me and Altman will likely not be in the same location, and that's obviously easier to do for a podcast when you and your co-host are in the same place. But we'll always have WebEx or some kind of online platform to do it on. So we'll continue it as long as we can.
Yep. So let's ask you this. What are your goals for this upcoming year? I know one of your goals is probably going to be just to heal up, but do you have any like specific weight goals you want to hit?
For myself, I actually been wanting to drop a weight class. I've been saying that for the past like 2-3 years, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna drop. So when I first came into powerlifting, I was actually a 72, and I was like, okay, like, you know, so I signed to UTSA at 72, and my boyfriend at the time, he was like, no, he's like, go 84s, and I was like, what? I was like, no, like, what the heck? Like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to gain that much weight. Like, I was already weighing like 170, and he's like, no, trust me. And I was like, you know what, all right. And my coach is like, no. And I was like, oh, I'm already like 5 pounds heavy. I ate a really big breakfast, kind of deal. And I just stuck with it, and I'm so glad I did. My numbers progressed like crazy. So I think that's one goal I want to hit. Maybe like drop a little bit. It's not 72 anymore, it's 76, so it's less weight to drop. Maybe that would be a goal. Not so sure yet about that one. I don't know. But I definitely wanted to get a 600 equipped squat.
Wow.
But I don't know how that's gonna happen with my knee. But we're gonna still try to get it. I do want to get a 500 bench press, and I want to match. Yeah, I want to match my deadlift to my bench press at least 500. At least I've never like had a best deadlift, but it's always been able to compete with everybody else's, so that's good.
Oh my
God.
So that's equipment.
I guess
You better catch up,
my
son.
goal for the next year is to keep up with you in bench.
Well, I just like, I don't even know how I like do it in equipment, if I'm being honest. Like, I just kind of like, I think it's just because I love the way it feels. So a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's so heavy, like I can't do that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so heavy, I love this. Like, it's just weird.
That's the thing about equipment. Like, when you get into it, and obviously you've had a lot of experience in it, you get into equipment and you get that feeling of having more than you'd normally be able to handle in squat, bench, or deadlift. You're like, wow, I kind of like this. And then you start to thrive off that extra heavy work, and you go back to raw work after an equip cycle, and you're just like, man, this just isn't the same.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely talk about stuff like that too, because I went from going to equipped worlds to going straight into a raw prep for raw nationals, and it was kind of like, oh no, like everything's different. And my numbers for raw went down once I go into equipment. So like after I get out of equipment, they're not as high as they used to be, just because like my body is like, okay, you have to like hold so much tension, or you don't have to be so tense when you're in equipment. And when I'm raw, like you have to maintain the tension under the bar at all times because there's no equipment to help you. But definitely, like, I can see where it's not always fun to transition into that raw block.
Yeah.
So would you consider doing the new, was it class or was it category raw with wraps?
I would definitely consider it, if I'm being honest, because I've trained that before and I loved it. I didn't, not so much I trained it, but they would like throw that in like on like my last day of the week. They're like, oh, like throw on some wraps and get a heavy single or double or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, like it added like 50 pounds. I was like, I love this. It feels so good.
Now,
but it's also kind of sticky, like equipment. So like if you like one wrong move and you're like, oh, and you just kind of, yeah.
Now, would you, if you're going to do that, because I'm thinking about doing, I'm thinking about going into it also. I want to learn from you though. So would you train the wraps probably just year round, or would you just have like this specific just training cycle for the meet just to train with wraps?
But by the way, he's a raw competitor, and he's only been in wraps like a couple of times.
Once.
I wouldn't well, it depends. So like if you're going to treat it like gear, then definitely it depends. So like when I was just a complete geared lifter, my coach would like be like, okay, like once a month you're gonna put on your bench shirt. And it was kind of like, oh, now I need to stay at weight the whole season. No. But with wraps, it's a little bit different just because I feel like for me, they're personally a lot easier. But for somebody that's never used wraps before, I would definitely program them in like maybe like once or twice a month. But definitely start using them a couple weeks out or like the way you would equipment. Like I usually put on equipment like about 6 weeks out. So that's when I start like training. And I would probably say the same for, wraps, but definitely don't take my word on it. I am not a strength and conditioning coach. Definitely ask your coach for sure. But I would say do that.
I think that's good advice.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't wear wraps year round. I would definitely, like you said, get into them like once or twice a month, and then up until you start your cycle before the meet. So maybe since you haven't had a lot of experience in them, maybe I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks out, start getting in them, and then they give you plenty of time to get used to them. Because only using wraps, that's a lot different from having to get back into a squat suit and a bench shirt.
Yeah, for sure. It's a completely different ball game, but I think they should be treated somewhat similar, like as far as like when you should use them, not how. Because definitely like whenever you put on gear, you have to be at weight or it's gonna fit wonky, like for sure. I always had that problem. Like my coach would be like, "Oh, it's time to put gear on," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm a little heavy, like, I can't hit depth," and I would get so upset. But with wraps, it's a completely different story. So you can put them on when you're 10 pounds heavier, when you're 10 pounds lighter, kind of deal.
Yes.
So that's something to take into consideration.
So I have two more questions for you. First off, okay, I'll start with that one. How do you think that like the USAPL and just powerlifting as a whole can get more women into the sport? Because obviously I feel like it's like male dominated, and especially as like a university recreational team, like we want to get more girls on the team to compete.
Well, so honestly, I've seen so many strong women out there, and like I said, I didn't really know about USAPL, and I looked up to women like Natalie Hansen, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be like her. And stuff that she does is like outreach to a lot of different, like just like using her social media platform to like radiate positivity and just like talk about her experiences. And she doesn't always post like the good stuff, she posts the bad stuff as well. Like she's like, okay, not every day is a perfect training day kind of deal. And it's outreaching to like schools and the youth, because like as they grow up they're going to be in the juniors and open and stuff like that. So that's how you kind of like build strong lifters, is outreaching to the youth, and just letting people know that it's not just for like strong people, it's for everybody. Like powerlifting is a sport that you can grow in. It's not something that you have to be good at when you start, because I can tell you from experience, like you don't have to be good when you start. I wasn't good when I started. There's a lot of other lifters that have never touched a bar before in their life, and they like, it's crazy how like you can see their growth. Like Amanda Lawrence, like I was looking at some of her meets, and she had posted like a video, and she's like first time squatting 315 like 2 years ago or something like that, and she squats like 5 something now. Like she is amazing. And I think like a lot of like youth, like girls and women, should look up to different lifters, and like I said, just having them outreach and stuff like that is super important, because a lot of people don't know about powerlifting as a sport, especially like younger girls. They're kind of just like pushed towards like dance or gymnastics or softball, and there's a variety of different sports out there, including powerlifting, that women can be included in.
That's really interesting. You mentioned something there that like for powerlifting, you don't have to have any kind of like base technical proficiency to start in it. Like you can start at ground zero and work up with like pretty much any other sport. Like you have to have some kind of proficiency at that sport to join a team, like
or
high
some
school.
kind of athletic ability.
Yeah, or like already have athletic ability, like speed, agility, some kind of strength. But I've never thought about that.
Yeah, it's the one sport, like you just said, you can start from zero and then work your way up and keep
And
doing it forever.
That's what I tell everybody that, because I've had like high schoolers come to me and they're like, "What's your advice like on starting powerlifting?" Or like, "I'm nervous to start powerlifting. Should I?" Like, and that's something I tell them. I'm like, you don't need to be experienced to join powerlifting. Powerlifting is a sport for everyone. It's people friendly. Like it's supposed to be fun. And nobody is the best when they start off, and that's something that people need to understand. Like, LeBron James wasn't LeBron James, but when he first started basketball, or Natalie Hampton wasn't the best power. She wasn't the open world champion all the time, and Amanda wasn't the open raw champion when she started either. So it's really important to look at people's growth and understand that I'm gonna grow as much work as I put into something.
Yeah, and I think it's good to look at the big picture. Like I've only been competing a year and a half, but I've put on. I looked at all the numbers, and I put on 200 pounds to my total. I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty good in just a year. And I'm like, okay, I can work with this. So yeah, just look at the big picture.
That's insane to put 200 pounds in over a year. Those are like the newbie gains or whatever they call them. That's awesome to put like 200 pounds. I wish I could do that. For sure. No, that's good. Congratulations on that. You should definitely like applaud yourself, especially when putting like 50 pounds. I am so impressed when people put like 50 pounds in a year. So you should be like, I don't know. I would be like super excited to put 200 pounds on my total in 1 year. That's insane.
Yeah. So my second question, I wanted to ask you, as a bench specialist, I would say it's safe to call you a bench specialist. What is your opinion on the whole bench grip width debate?
Oh my gosh. So I can probably go on about this forever. So it's really tricky because there are some arches that are insane, so insane. There was a girl from Midland that I just saw recently, and I think her range of motion is like an inch at most, but it's still so impressive. Like, how can you arch like that to get that little range of motion? But at the same time, she weighs like 52 kilos, I believe, is the women's. And she's benching like 250 something for reps, but the range of motion is smaller. But at the same time, it's like, oh my gosh, she's 52 kilos and benching 252 pounds for reps. That's still crazy. Honestly, in the sport of powerlifting, I don't think that it's that big of a deal, just because the goal is to lift the most weight as possible. But if you're going to be competing in like I don't know, like if there was another sport where, it was like how far away, I guess, like how big the range of motion you can get with as much as weight you can lift, definitely, I guess, like bring the grip in. But honestly, I don't see the problem with it. So many people hate on it. Like I got a world record bench for the juniors, and the IPF posted it, and I was like, yes, like I'm so happy. I worked so hard for this. And all the comments are like, that shouldn't even be allowed, like this and that. And I was like, listen, if you can't bench that much, you can just say that. Like you don't have to go saying all that stuff. So honestly, like I don't think it's a problem, like the small range of motion. But that's just coming from me because like I have a very, very little range of motion as well. So I
mean, like you have a very, like a pretty big arch, but you still have like a decent range of motion. Like it's not like tiny, like down up. Like you actually have to go like a decent way. But
I mean, you still have to lift the weight either way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what she just said, you still have to lift it. I do see like a lot of guys though, like the world record holders for guys, like Julius Maddox, world record holder for the bench right now, just benched 782 today. He doesn't really have an arch at all. Of course, he's just so thick. He's like a damn car just sitting on the bench. But I think it just comes down to like what you prefer.
Mm-hmm. And it's also really different because like there's a bunch of different body types too. So like my arms are short, so that's why I can't deadlift as much like as I bench or squat in equipment at least. But definitely like it's something you need to take into consideration because like some people are made for bench, like me. Like I have short arms, like it's perfect for me. And some people, they're not as flexible, they can't arch, they have like crazy long arms. Like of course there's going to be like a difference. Like they're going to have, no matter how much they arch or, you know, how wide their grip is, they're always going to have more range of motion than I would, you know?
Okay. I just wanted to get your opinion on it, and I kind of figured that's what you would say, and like, I mean, I could see it from both ways, because you know it doesn't really affect me. I still have no matter what the limitation is. I'm in a 105, so it, you know, my grip is out there, and no matter how big an arch I have, I'm still gonna have a long way to go.
And you still got to bench the weight either way.
Yeah, you still gotta lift the weight.
It's about moving from point A to point B as best you can.
Yeah.
As efficiently as you can. So if you find a way to cheat that, go for it.
I mean, you know, by that logic, you would probably have to remove sumo because,
yeah,
I mean, the rule is get the weight from point A to point B, like Altman said, within the rules that are there, and you know, use whatever you can to your advantage.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna guess.
I agree with that.
I'm gonna guess you're sumo puller.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, I recently changed to conventional though because of my knee, and I love conventional now. Like I didn't realize that. I would always be like, oh, it's so difficult. Like I can't get the form right or something, you know. But recently, like it's been going really well, and I really enjoy it. I also like sumo though, so it really depends on like your mobility in your hips. That's a big part of like sumo, like whether you pull sumo or conventional. So my hip mobility is not the best. So pulling conventional is so much easier for me now. And I just really appreciate it. Like I'm so glad that there's two different ways to pull deadlift, because deadlift is already hard enough for me. Like I don't understand like why. I'm getting there though. I promise I'm working on it.
So, as we kind of wrap up the show, I don't want to keep you too long. We're already at almost or a little over an hour. But the goal of this show is to kind of get like high school and college age kids into powerlifting, and just help people learn more about the sport and progress and just take whatever they can away from the episode. So if you give one piece of advice to people that are getting into the sport or thinking about it, what would you tell them?
I think if I was going to tell somebody, you know, like, okay, if you want to get into sport, like I said earlier, you don't have to be the best at what you do when you start off. So don't be discouraged, you know, if you just lift one plate, if you just lift the bar, because you will see progression. And, you know, don't be afraid to go into the gym, because everyone started somewhere. Even the best of the best started, you know, at the lowest with the bar, like I'm telling you. And I know from experience that, you know, with a lot of dedication and hard work, you're going to get to your goals, no matter how long it's going to take or, you know, how short it's going to take. Definitely, you know, keep working hard, because you're going to eventually become, you know, the champion of, you know, the world champion, national champion, like whatever you set your mind to. So definitely don't be discouraged from anything, and don't let anybody get in your way of like you wanting to pursue your, you know, lifting career or anything.
Well, I'm ready to go lift now.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well, Altman, do you have anything else to add?
Thank you for coming on. We wish you the best. Good luck with your knee, and we're excited to see what you can do in these next couple of years.
Thanks. I really appreciate y'all having me on. It was really awesome talk.
Absolutely. If you want to, you can go ahead and plug your Instagram. Where can people find you at?
So my Instagram is Texas Bench Babe. I'm there all the time. I love Instagram. I post a bunch of memes on my story. I also post a lot of bench videos, obviously. So y'all can go follow me at Texas Bench Babe if y'all want.
All right. And Altman?
Big strength.
There we go. Check me out at Seth.Todd76. I don't post any training videos, but follow me if you want. Check out the channel at triple.b.podcast. And go ahead and check Leann out on her Instagram page. She does post a lot of training videos, so you can keep up with her and her recovery and her bench squats and deads there. And like we said, Leann, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your time. And we wish you the best in your upcoming training. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.